WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisEye to 44321.
Deb Anderson of West Bend is the Democratic candidate for the 58th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Deb Anderson, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for participating. What is your campaign's key message and why are you running for this office?
I have many reasons for running, but I think the basic one right now is that we need to respect the process. We need to respect each other. We're all Americans. We may have a D or an R after our names, but basically we need to stop running against each other and start working for the people.
So let's say you're elected. What's an example of a bill that you would prioritize introducing?
One of the bills that I have as a priority, I gave some thought to it, was, do you mind if I look at this because I want to be able to say it correctly? What I would like is to increase funding for health care to include mental health as well as child care. I think that we're in a very critical time as far as particularly children and their mental health. My granddaughter is a teacher and she sees kids struggling with anxiety and depression a lot in her class, and she's very concerned.
So if you're elected, you'd be entering the legislature during a biennial budget year, and the state's projected to have more than a $3 billion surplus. You just mentioned some funding priorities. Are those your two main priorities, or are there other funding priorities?
When I was looking at the issues affecting our state, they are so broad. We need to address a lot of things that have been put off because we have been not putting bills forward for votes. We've not been allowing our governor to sign bills. So I think that as far as the budget goes, people are always talking about tax cuts. We've got to cut taxes. That's a great battle cry when you're running for office, but the reality is we need fire protection, we need police protection, we need universities, we need a lot of things in the state. So it's not about cutting, in my opinion. I think our budget needs to be looked at. We need to make sure that what we're spending our money on benefits the people in our state. If we keep putting it off, it just gets more expensive, not less.
So are tax cuts or tax reform at all a part of your platform?
I don't believe that. I would cut something that's not important, that's not needed. I really don't, because I haven't looked at the overall budget yet. But I really do think that, first of all, a lot of our extra money that they call slush fund, is some of that came because of COVID to get people back to work. So if we continue driving over here, we saw lots of road work, bridge work being done by people. We also have a lot of buildings that need infrastructure work. We have plumbing and sewage issues everywhere. We have environmental issues that need to be addressed. All of these things contribute to jobs. So I think that I wouldn't cut anything that's going to ultimately benefit people working. I think that nobody likes to pay taxes, but I think that we would all agree that they're a necessary evil, that if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have a civilized community that can work together.
What about K-12 education? That's a high priority for many Wisconsinites. What is your priority for K-12 education?
K-12 education is kind of a sticking point for me because I think that when voucher money is leaving public education for private schools, it is reducing the ability of public education to be able to maintain itself. I would like to see public education increase the layers of support as far as nurses, librarians, and counselors, so that teachers can get back to teaching.
What about higher education, the state system of four-year colleges, two-year colleges, technical colleges? What does the future of that system look like to you, and what's the legislature's role?
I love that technical colleges are growing, that it gives jobs to people who aren't not everyone is college bound. And I think that my husband was a mechanic, and he said, if you know how to fix something, you've got a job for life. And he was able to support our family, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. But I worry about colleges becoming bastions of the elite. I think that our UW system has always been known for the Wisconsin idea, where people receive good educations, but there's also development going on that goes out into the business world and improves what they can offer. And I think that also attracts students.
So we need more funding in that area?
I think that definitely we need more funding in education. If you don't have an educated community, you just have people who can only do basic work, and there's no plan for the future.
What is the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how do you propose to address it?
I think one of the problems with workforce, well, again, is educating people, whether it's through technical school or it used to be you could get on-the-job training, but it's very hard to find places that are willing to do that anymore. So to be able to have more people access going to technical schools or colleges, coming out having a level of competency that makes them competitive in the workforce. But I also think that when we have offers of bidding jobs, which we had to do when I was an alderman at the city, we bid out jobs. I think our priority needs to be companies that are in our state, to be able to be sure that the jobs are going to local companies.
Well, related to that, another question on the workforce. Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This also provides an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
Yes, I would. Definitely.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Are you aware of this, and what do you think should be done about it?
I've become aware of this, and I think that it needs to stop. I think that it is just another form of dishonesty. I think that when other companies are paying their taxes, paying the benefits out to their employees, that all companies should be doing that. And I think that it's also unfair to the workers. It's exploiting them, and I don't think that that's right either. So if everybody could just have an even playing field to start from, and then we would know. And it needs to be disclosed before anybody is accepting a bid.
Moving on to housing, affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin. Some support government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability? Rent control, or building more rentals, or some other solution?
I would really want to avoid rent control. I think that we have a free market economy, and I don't like the government telling independent company owners what they can charge for any of their goods. I think that eliminates a lot of competition. The shortage of housing, it needs to be addressed in creative ways. I used to be a property manager for an apartment building that they used to make leather goods. Okay, and it was converted into an apartment building, very, very nice apartments, housing seniors, and it was through the WIDA program. And I think that there are ways that we could provide, using lots of empty buildings, we could repurpose them into homes for veterans, for elderly, for people who can't afford higher rents. And I think that the housing issue, with a little creativity and a reality check on what it really means to house people, we could solve a lot of problems. All of them, not sure, but we could solve a lot of them.
Transitioning to healthcare. Medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in western Wisconsin. What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
I was on the task force to try to keep our local nursing homes, our county nursing home, open. We've been taking care of people who were poor or people who were elderly since our county was born. It was a moral responsibility in the hearts of a lot of people. Recently it was sold to a private entity that does not need to accept Medicaid people. So these nursing homes at $10,000 or more a month, they rapidly eat up anyone's savings, and people end up on Medicaid. I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned every time I'm on Medicare, every time I get a statement for a procedure that may have been $5,000 and see that Medicare is paying less than $1,000 to reimburse these people, I worry about how long my provider is going to accept me as a patient. So I really think that we need to reimburse at a higher rate.
Increase reimbursement?
Absolutely. Because people are not in a position to just go out and get a second job when they're in that situation. So I think that we're seeing that across the board, and it seems that nobody is really upset about it until it's them.
What about mental health care? It's a growing concern for many Wisconsinites and concern for state and county budgets. What is your sense of that as an issue, and what are solutions?
It's a huge issue, and it needs to be addressed just as comprehensively as physical health care. I have a couple of relatives who struggle with mental health care. I have a couple who are receiving assistance through the VA for PTSD-related mental health care, and they're getting great care. I wish that everyone could get the kind of services that you get through the veterans services. It should not be a stigma. It's very important because it's not going to go away. And a lot of times it's like diabetes. It's not going away. People may be healthy for a while, and then they're not again. So it needs to be better understood and addressed.
Is there some solution that the legislature could get behind?
I think that a couple of things. One is the schools need to be able to provide some mental health resources regularly to students, rather than have students being taken out of school for appointments somewhere else. We also need to have mental health care as we need to bring in more for county-run mental health, because not everybody has mental health issues has jobs, that they lose their jobs quite often. They don't always have insurance. And so they need to have a place to go where they can get that kind of, get back on track, get their lives back.
How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
I think abortion shouldn't even be a political issue. I think women's health care is women's health care. Nobody is regulating Viagra or gallbladder surgeries. If people don't want to have one, they shouldn't have one. But I don't think that they should be imposing their personal or religious views on other people. We have a separation of church and state here, and I think that it's on shaky ground, that separation. And I think it's good to remind people to just be respectful. You know, if you think you're ultimately going to be judged wrong for having an abortion, I'll give it to the judge, not to you. So no, abortion I think is a personal issue.
No limits in state law?
No, no limits.
Moving on to transportation, what are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these are addressed, and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of our aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
A lot of the problems with our roads is the high volume of traffic going back and forth. We had a bus service in our county to Milwaukee jobs or hospitals or other places that they could go, and that was recently cut as well. And the reason was because they didn't have enough riders. And I thought, you know, how many is enough? Maybe get a smaller bus, but keep making that possible. There was a woman who I read about who lives in Milwaukee. She had a job with Amazon, and it took her 4 buses to get down to her job at Amazon. She had to leave at 4 in the morning. She didn't get back home until 8 at night, and they cut the bus service going to Amazon. Okay, so she had to find another job, and nothing was going to pay as well as she was getting to go there. She had children to support, and she was trying to do her responsible part, you know, by earning a living, and the possibilities get taken away. So I would like to see a return to, you know, valuing the bus services that, you know, that are possible for a lot of different people that keep them from having to use the roads. I'd like to see train service returned for more of the commerce as well. You go down the road and it's semi after semi, which is wonderful for semi drivers, but it's really very harsh on the roads. So,
what about the environment? PFAS and other water contaminants are a concern for a growing number of Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you propose to address it?
Well, actually, there's also forever chemicals that are in the water that don't go away either. We need to increase funding for being able to identify as well as purify what's going on in our water, our soils. I think we've really cut back a lot on some of the harsh chemicals that were used in farming, but we still could do a lot better. Just all environmental challenges need to be addressed, and we can't delay anymore. There are people leaving Southern California. I just heard of a friend of mine said her family's moving from Southern California because of the fires. There are a lot of people down in New Orleans. I have a cousin in New Orleans. How many hurricanes are going through there that are unprecedented? I have family in New York that are experiencing tornadoes that they never had before. It was always Tornado Alley in the middle of the country. So climate change is changing how we can live on our land. And I think that we need to address that. Again, going back to the universities, you know, to encourage great thinkers to be able to plan out, to be able to identify ways that we can address these issues.
We are down to our final 2 questions. I'd like to ask you, how would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
My opponent is, I don't have anything personal, you know, against my opponent. I can only say that in my career, I have worked in the nonprofit world. My whole focus has been on how to make life easier for people who are struggling. So I listen to them and I try to solve their problems. And even as an alderman, we had a lift station that was failing and a subdivision that couldn't sell their homes because nobody wanted to buy a home that they didn't know what's going to happen with their sewage. We were able to connect them to the city sewage, and that ended up benefiting our whole city with an expanded tax base. So I can see things that I have been able to accomplish, and I'm proud of that. As far as elections go, I trust our elections. I've been a poll worker. I know how these things work. I don't question how the elections end up, and I would certainly never sign a paper that says that I deny that this election was valid.
Final question. If you're elected this fall and you get this magic wand you can use in the state capitol to resolve one issue in a way that brings all parties together, what would that issue be?
I think that would have to be getting back to, education. I think education is a high priority. If we can have mentally healthy kids moving into our world with a better understanding of how to get along in that world, with an understanding of what issues are ahead of them that they can target their careers toward. So I think just kindergarten through graduate school, we need to emphasize the importance of all of that to make sure that the next generations are ready for the world that they're moving into.
Well, thank you, Deb Anderson of West Bend, the Democratic candidate for the 58th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Deb Anderson, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.